Hi, Maury Biner here with Sotheby's International Realty, and welcome to Mr. Neighborhood Talks Real Estate. And with us today, we have Holly Barberi. Holly is General Manager of Vista Sotheby's, and she's also the in-house lawyer, which is why she's here today. She's here to talk law. So Holly, before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your schooling, work experience, Sotheby's, and why, as a lawyer, you decided to focus on real estate?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Thank you for having me today, Maury. I really appreciate it. So I sort of fell into real estate, which I think a lot of people kind of do when they end up here. But I have been doing real estate brokerage for about 16 years as a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for a little over 20 years. I am from California, a California native, but I did go to law school back in Houston. And at the time I graduated from law school, I thought I'm going to be a corporate lawyer. And within a year, the market there changed, and I moved into real estate. And so I've been there ever since. And it was probably the best decision of my life. I really enjoy it. I've enjoyed being a part of real estate transactions for decades now, and really enjoy being a part of real estate brokerage. I've been with the Sotheby's brand for 3.5 years now, and I'm so excited to be here. I just really love being in the transactions with agents and helping them get through their deals.
That's great. I know that when you joined the company, life became a lot easier for us agents. It was great. It's great having you here.
Thank you.
What are some of the latest state or federal laws that our South Bay homeowners should be aware of?
That's a really good question. So there are really not any federal laws that are affecting our homeowners right now. All of those that had anything to do with the pandemic have really now gone away. But there are a couple of California laws that we need to be aware of. And then specifically in LA County right now, because of the pandemic, we are still under the California emergency order. And we in LA County are under the eviction moratorium. And while some people think, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I have a single family home, that is actually not the case. So it applies to every residential property in LA County, whether you have a single family or you have a fourplex, it applies to everybody. And what that means is that you can't get rid of your tenant. Whether you like your tenant and you just want to get a new tenant, or you don't like your tenant and you just want to get rid of them, nobody cares. You have to keep your tenants for right now unless the tenant wants to get out. So the only exception to that right now is if your tenant isn't paying rent, or if you own the property and you or your immediate family member is going to move into the property, and then you actually have to pay them to get out. That's in effect until the end of December. And then in January, that will all change back to what we used to know before, unless you have low-income tenants, and then that will still stay in effect. So that's the local ordinance. If you're outside of LA County, that doesn't apply to you. It's only if you're in LA County.
Right.
Now, as far as California rules, we have two different rules that we really need to think about. One doesn't come into effect until really the eviction moratorium goes away, because it's the California Tenant Protection Act, and it went into effect in January of 2020. We didn't really get a chance to get to know it very well before the pandemic hit. Yeah. So you probably remember us talking about it a lot back then. Mm-hmm. It's really two parts. It's the rent cap and the just cause eviction portion. So rent cap only applies to people that are more than single family homes. But if you are a single family, I don't just mean homes, I mean single family units, because that's homes and condos. But there is a checkbox that you have to do to make sure people know that you're exempt from it when you have a single family unit. You probably remember that. Or if you're an owner occupant in a duplex, then you're also exempt from that. But the rent cap limits how much you can increase the rent, which right now under the emergency order, we're limited to 10% anyway. So that one, again, doesn't really take place. We don't have to worry about that till the LA County eviction moratorium goes away. So in January, we'll have to make sure that our homeowners are really, a little bit more adept at that. The other one that's kind of an interesting one is SB 330, which also went into effect in January of 2020. And that's the one that says if you have 2 units on a property, you won't be able to go back to a single one. If you have 3 units, you'll never get to go back below 3. If you have 4, and so on. So once you add something like an ADU onto your property, you'll never be able to go back to a single family unit. So we call it having how many doors do you have. If you have 3 doors, 3 units, you'll never get less than 3
And
units.
an ADU is?
And I'm sorry, that's an accessory dwelling unit. And some people think of it as like a granny flat or a guest house, but it can be separately rented.
Yes.
And can be added on to your home, and that's a new law that was a couple years now before the pandemic that said people could add that.
Okay, so we here at Mr. Neighborhood Talks Real Estate love a good story. So can you fill us in on an interesting, humorous, or just a fun legal case you were involved in?
Well, I can tell you that having done this for so many years, and you as well, having been a long-term real estate agent, it feels like something new pops into your life all the time. And so, we have a lot of fun sometimes thinking about the different things that people do. Recently, we had a deal in escrow, and the buyer drove by the property after the first week, and there was a bathtub in the front yard because the tenant decided to start renovating the bathroom in the first week of the escrow. So they took the bathtub out and put it on the front lawn, and the buyer was very disturbed by that. I have another one where, an agent was representing a family member, and things weren't going well. They closed escrow. It was a sale, and the family member said, I didn't agree to some of these things, and so certain things weren't paid off to the buyer. And in the end, it turned out that he committed fraud and forged the family member's name to agree to certain credits to the buyer that the seller never actually agreed to.
Oh my God.
He I don't believe still has his license, and that was many, many, many years ago. But, it's just really strange things that people get caught up in a situation and they don't think about, how does this affect the other people in this transaction?
Yeah.
But I will say for the most part, our transactions are smooth, our agents are great, and people want to sell their house, so they get to the end, and people want to buy, so they figure out how to get past all the bumps and obstacles, and our real estate agents like you help them get there.
Yep, that's what we do. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate you
absolutely.
coming.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.